Hello, my name is Vanessa Fialos. Today we will be discussing the ever-important and relevant discussion on the topic of animal versus plant proteins and which is best for overall health and longevity. With all the literature that has been published, combined with what consumers are reading in the media, the debate over which protein source is best has led to confusion, generalization, and false information. So how can the often confusing literature from the past 10 or 20 years be synthesized to learn which is best for overall health and longevity? Plant-based diets have long been associated with longevity and overall health, while animal meat has been associated with high cholesterol, saturated fat, and high CVD risk. Today we will look beyond these stereotypes and look to the literature to see if we can get a clearer answer. We will discuss one of the leading causes of death in the U.S., cardiovascular disease, how the quality of a protein is a pivotal component to health, how proteins affect mental health, and the role that lifestyle plays in this discussion, and the importance of plants. This debate often includes discussion over environmental impact. However, although an important and relevant topic, it will not be discussed today. This review will be strictly discussing the nutritional factors that impact human health in regard to protein intake. The once confusing and seemingly competing literature will be synthesized and presented, showing a third way to approach the animal versus plant debate. Based off the literature, a consideration of what is best for overall health and longevity is a diet including high plant intake, moderate intake of high-quality animal protein, all in combination with healthy lifestyle factors. Firstly, it is important to review what information recent literature can give on the association between red meat and adverse health effects such as increased CVD risk. Recent studies have shown that processed and unprocessed meats have significant nutritional differences, which influences the risk meat has on CVD risk. Processed meats that include nitrates and other additives that have been commercially prepared by charring or blackening and that have high content of visible fat and increased sodium are the main contributing factors to the association that red meat has had with CVD and other adverse health effects such as cancer. A meta-analysis in 2010 showed no significant association between unprocessed meat and CVD risk. Additives such as nitrates have been shown to lead to increased CVD risk, insulin resistance, endothelial dysfunction, and atherosclerosis development. Additionally, a review of 13 studies of hunter-gatherers where animal protein intake was the primary energy source showed low levels of CVD incidence and overall desirable levels of other nutritional factors such as lipid levels, fiber, and micronutrients. Cordain discussed that despite the fact that hunter-gatherers exhibited generally no signs of CVD and favorable lipid levels, their diet included higher than recommended fat levels, which is 36 to 43%. These favorable outcomes are attributed to the fatty acid composition of the proteins and overall diet the hunter-gatherers consumed, which showed higher intake of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, specifically with a lower ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Carbohydrate consumption was of significantly higher quality and lower intake overall compared to a typical Western diet. The review by Cordain again supports the notion that animal proteins alone do not increase risk of CVD, but rather the quality of the protein and carbohydrate intake is what can influence risk factors such as lipid levels. The fatty acid composition of red meat has been believed to be the underlying trigger of CVD risk. However, along with the sources already mentioned, a review by Daly in 2010 also considered the quality of beef and how the production of the meat influences fatty acid composition. The research mentioned in this review indicated that grass-fed rather than grain-fed beef has considerably favorable lipid levels with lower overall fat and a lower ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. Grass-fed beef also has higher amounts of antioxidants and other precursor nutrients. The literature displays that although red meat has previously been linked generally to leading to higher CVD risk, the contributing factors that need more attention are rather how the animal has been raised, how the meat was prepared, and what else in the diet is in combination with it. According to the World Health Organization in 2020, depression is a leading cause of disability and affects more than 264 million people worldwide. Given this information, it is vital to include mental health as a part of this conversation on which protein is best for overall health and longevity. Many studies have shown that omega-3 fatty acids such as EPA and DHA play an important role in preventing depression, Alzheimer's, and other neurological related conditions. A 2014 meta-analysis and 2012 systematic review of randomized controlled trials showed that omega-3 supplementation supports the prevention and treatment of depression and other neuropsychiatric disorders. A 2016 meta-analysis showed that fish intake, and specifically DHA, was associated with a lower risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The primary sources of EPA and DHA are fish such as salmon, herring, sardines, etc. Overall, the data from several randomized controlled trials show that including fish in one's diet or omega-3 supplementation slows cognitive decline. Along with omega-3, nutrients including folate, vitamin B12, iron, magnesium, and several others are considered to be the primary antidepressant nutrients found in foods such as leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, organ meats, and seafood. Although vegetables were among the highest ranking for many antidepressant nutrients, it is important to consider how animal products contribute differently than vegetables, such as with B12, indicating a combination of animal and plant sources for a lower risk of depression. LaChance and Ramsey in 2018 also made known that nutritional density differs in processed and unprocessed meats and ultimately suggest a moderate intake of animal proteins as beneficial, since recent studies have found higher incidence of depression in vegetarian populations. Based off the author's ranking of antidepressant foods, the authors suggest a whole foods-based traditional diet to prevent and treat depressive disorders. The review of the literature shows evidence that omega-3 fatty acids, primarily sourced from fish, as well as other micronutrients sourced from animal proteins and vegetables such as leafy greens, contribute to the prevention and treatment of depression and other mental health disorders and illnesses. Now we will look how lifestyle plays a role in this discussion. Song in 2016 conducted an analysis from 2 cohort studies to determine animal and plant proteins in association with mortality. Animal protein was shown to increase CVD mortality, specifically with individuals who exhibit at least one or more unhealthy lifestyle factors such as smoking, heavy drinking, physical inactivity, and obesity. There was no significant association between animal protein intake that was unprocessed and mortality for individuals who exhibited healthy lifestyle factors. Similarly, in the review of hunter-gatherers mentioned earlier, these populations showed little to no evidence of CVD even while their diet consisted of 56 to 65% animal food and 46 to 55% of plant food. Additional to the hunter-gatherers whole foods-based traditional diet, Cordain et al. Note that the lifestyle factors are largely responsible for why this population could eat the way they did with absence of CVD and other chronic illnesses. Hunter-gatherers were shown to have active lifestyles absent of the use of tobacco, alcohol, and as well as having lower stress. Therefore, it is important not to just focus on the debate whether to consume meat or not, but rather to scrutinize the diet as a whole, as well as the lifestyle factors that can affect our overall health. To reiterate, it is not simply the consumption of animal protein that leads to higher risk of CVD, but the combination of animal protein, processed foods, and unhealthy lifestyle that can lead to CVD, among other diseases. Now on to the importance of plants. According to Wallace in 2019, nearly 90% of Americans do not meet daily recommended vegetable intake. Consuming the recommended amount of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and fish showed a 56% reduction in all-cause mortality. Consuming the recommended vegetable and fruit intake are considered to be 2 of the most important risk factors in lowering all-cause mortality and lowering risk of chronic disease due to plant foods containing fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. Studies have shown a reduction of incidence in CVD and certain cancers such as colorectal cancer with sufficient intake of fruits and vegetables due to fiber intake, as well as other micronutrients and phytochemicals present in these plant foods. Immune cell function has also been shown to be significantly influenced by certain properties present in plant foods. Among these mentioned that are positively associated with lower risk of disease when consuming higher amounts of plant foods are liver and kidney health, bone health, weight management, allergies, pulmonary disease, autoimmune disease, gut health, metabolic health, and many other chronic diseases. Overall, the evidence links high intake of plant foods, particularly of the non-starchy and unprocessed variety, to lower risk of mortality and incidence of chronic disease. Increased plant intake can lead to many health-promoting effects as well as prevention and treatment for many illnesses. Systematic reviews support the recommendation that certain types of plant foods more significantly contribute nutritionally to better health outcomes and biomarkers for foods such as dark leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, dark-colored berries, and citrus fruits. A protein source, whether from plants or animals, has been an ongoing discussion for decades now. In particular, much of the research has demonized red meat as the culprit for CVD, which is a leading cause of death in the United States. With the rise of plant-based protein substitutes available to the public, an overwhelming amount of chronic disease incidence, and public confusion around what to eat and to decide to include animal foods or not, we gathered the literature on the subject in order to come to a clear answer of which is best for overall health and longevity. The literature shows firstly that animal foods, particularly red meat, is not to blame for the increased risk of CVD that has been the culprit in competing literature. Rather, it is the processed red meat that is the problem. More importantly than quality animal protein consumption is sufficient intake of fruits and vegetables as well as healthy lifestyle factors. One animal protein that stood out from the rest, however, particularly in regards to mental health, was fish and seafood. Red meat also appears to be unique in its contribution with certain B vitamins and iron, which is not present in comparable abundance in plant foods. Therefore, the question begs, could one live on plant foods alone? More research is needed to determine the long-term effects of eating unprocessed plant foods in association with overall health and longevity. Many studies do not specify what foods in particular are part of a vegan or plant-based diet, which largely determines the health outcome, as was the case for the studies on red meat that did not differentiate processed and unprocessed meats. Based off the literature, it is safe to conclude that moderate intake of unprocessed animal protein along with a high intake of fruits and vegetables, preferably dark leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, dark-colored berries, and citrus fruits, and healthy lifestyle factors such as no smoking or heavy drinking, low stress, and regular physical inactivity leads to better overall health and longevity. Thank you so much.